Hi, I'm a disabled gamer. I can only play video games with my left hand. I'm lucky, I still have both, but I have crippling carpal tunnel pain in my right hand, and so I really can only afford to use this hand for things that are fun, like playing video games. And so I've been on a quest to find adapters or joysticks or whatever that would make it possible for me to play video games using just my left hand. Today I'm going to talk about an option that is quite affordable because it's meant for flight sim buffs, and ask whether or not you could play other sorts of games using it. So this is obviously a joystick for flight sims, and of course it would work for flight sims just fine. But the question is, could you play other sorts of games, first-person shooters, adventure games, whatever, using this sort of joystick? Especially if you were playing on a PC with remapping software that allowed you to make choices that weren't envisioned by the developers of the game. And I think the answer is definitely yes. So this particular joystick gives you your standard flight stick that you can move around like this, but it gives you a lot of other buttons that are all available with one hand. So if we look here, we can see that your thumb is meant to be able to push these buttons here. That's 3 buttons there. With almost as much ease, you can also push these 2 buttons, and then of course there's the traditional trigger button there. In addition, you have this 8-way POV stick that you can think of as a D-pad replacement. So that's pretty good. We've already got 6 buttons and 1 D-pad available here, plus the simultaneous ability to move this joystick around as you're doing all of that. Now, if you need to have some buttons you can push rarely, that you can push while you're no longer holding the joystick, you have these additional buttons over here. So we have 3 here and 3 here. So that gives you a lot of options for things like loading up inventory strings or changing your loadout or whatever. So that's pretty cool. One thing that I didn't realize before I bought this is it also has the ability to detect rotation. So if I twist the joystick, it detects that as well. So this allows sort of an interesting setup for playing first-person shooters, where you do your rotation with this motion, strafing with this motion, and looking up and down with this. Now all you need to do is be able to control forward and back movement, and you can do that with your POV hat. So this sounds all pretty good, doesn't it? Well, I think it depends a lot on what your disability is. In my particular case, since my problem is not lacking hands, but that one of them is very easily damaged from the carpal tunnel pain that I experience, it turns out this isn't a good solution, because although my right hand is the problem hand that I dare not play video games with, my left hand isn't perfect either. And so the stress of doing these rotations and pushing against this spring, which looks pretty wimpy, but you know, it's enough to cause trouble for me, causes me to experience pain pretty quickly in my left hand. So for me personally, this isn't a good solution. But if you have better wrists than I do, and I think most people do, I'm really unlucky in that regard, this might actually be a really good option if you have one hand and that hand works well. I want to point out that I've configured this for my left hand, which is it's sort of hard to get joysticks that are built for that. This is actually an ambidextrous stick. This part here is removable, so it can sit over on the other side. So right now this is set up perfectly for left-handed use, but it could be just as well configured for right-handed use. It also has these 2 adjustment screws here that allow you to change the angle of this particular part to be more ergonomic for you. So on the whole, I think this is actually a really nicely designed stick. New, I think it retailed for about $50, and I think there are things roughly equivalent new that retail for about that much. This one was sold for quite a while, and now retails for more like $15 to $20 used. So this could be a really good choice for some people. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's just the model that I bought or a design defect, but these 2 buttons up here, they're labeled 5 and 6. They don't work that well. They tend to stick very badly unless you push in just the right spot, which is like right here. So some of the button choices here are not so great. They're certainly not good for things you're going to push all the time. Like I said, this may be a design defect, or it may be more likely a defect that's developed with age. When I've read reviews of these things by flight sim buffs, they never talked about this problem. So I think there's a decent chance that if you bought another one, you wouldn't have this issue. But given that I have experienced that issue, you should definitely get one that has a good return policy in case that also turns out to be a problem for you. So, what joystick is this? It's made by Saitek. They make joysticks for other manufacturers as well that slap their name on it, but this is the actual company. And this particular one is the Cyborg Evo. I think there's other Cyborgs that have different distributions of buttons here and buttons here. I think this is the one that seems to have the most buttons, so I recommend it from that perspective. The most buttons that you can get access to with one hand is definitely the best thing for playing the most sorts of games. I will say that it played just fine as a first-person shooter or adventure game joystick because of the fact that I had this additional degree of freedom to do rotation with this action. I was able to basically look around and move with pretty good resolution and speed in a first-person shooter. If only it hadn't caused so much wrist pain, I think I would still be using it today. However, as I've said, I don't think that everyone will have this ergonomic problem that I have, and so I think this is definitely worth trying. Again, definitely when you consider the cost of buying a custom controller, this is a great first choice to try and see if maybe you can increase the range of games you can play. Alrighty, well, I hope I've helped some people with this video. And as always, I'm very curious to hear what other people have tried to deal with their disability and whether or not they found any good solutions for playing games one-handed. Thank you for your time.